All right, and welcome into the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Show Chap. Obviously, today, um, yesterday was the cut down date, and when you heard about the cut down date, obviously there was going to be some moves that were going to be strategically made. We saw what they were doing. Today, they added two more players from the waiver wire. We'll get to those guys. They also made a trade, so there's a lot to talk about when we talk about the Detroit Lions going into the Labor Day weekend because I feel like when once we get to Labor Day weekend, we might get a little more clarity. But at this point in time, it's kind of like just mumbo jumbo. And this is not the final roster. Like, this is not going to be the final roster for the Detroit Lions. But there's a lot to talk about in terms of the way that they're structuring this roster and what they're kind of holding out for in the meantime. That's going to be the main question that we talk about today. Obviously, we'll talk about that later in the podcast. But first, we're going to get to the moves because I thought the moves that were made by today by the Detroit Lions in terms of their practice squad. Now, if you missed yesterday's show, these were the players that they released or they cut. So they waived with the injury settlement Ahmad Hassanin. Now he ended up clearing waivers, so that means that he'll go back into Detroit's international program uh, when he's healthy. Ezekiel Turner was placed on reserve injured. That's he's injured, so that's whatever. Miles Adams was released. Trayson Colon was released. Tom Kennedy released. Natane Buti, it was released. Anthony Pittman, Dan Skipper, which was a surprise right there. Dan Skipper was a released candidate. Malik Taylor was also released. Now you get to the wave portion. Mitchell Gude, Luke Baraku, Ronnie Bell, Gunnar Britton, Keith Cooper Jr., who had a really good preseason. Alan George, Deron Gilbert, Eric Hallett, Hendon Hooker was obviously waived as well. Zach Horton, Deion Jackson, Zach Johnson, Jacoby Kenny James was also waived. You had Ian Kennelly, Nate Lynn, Broderick Martin, Jackson Meeks, DJ Miller, Mason Miller, Michael Neese, Maurice Norris, Gunnar Oaks, Tyson Russell, Jacob Sailors, Steven Stellanos, Lauren Strickland, Isaac Abuku, and Nick Whiteside were all waived. Placed on reserve, physically unable to perform. Ali McNeil, Malcolm Rodriguez, and Miles Frazier. Placed on reserve, non-football injury was Josh Pascal. And today we got the basically who was going to be on the practice squad. So this was the practice squad for the Detroit Lions. Today they signed Miles Adams, Ronnie Bell, Tryston Colon, Keith Cooper, Eric Hallett, Zach Horton, Tom Kennedy, Jackson Meeks, Mason Miller, Michael Neese, Anthony Pittman, Jacob Sailors, Lauren Strickland, Dan Skipper, and Isaac Awuku. They did not sign Nate Lynn to the practice squad. So it gets to knowing, first of all, was there any surprises that were cut? I thought Dan Skipper getting released was surprising. Miles Adams getting waived was released was surprising. I wasn't surprised by the Hendon Hooker stuff. We've talked about Hendon Hooker ad nauseum on this podcast. But when you look at the reserved and the waived, and you get to a point where you're just like, okay, I kind of expected these guys. I was a little bit surprised by Keith Cooper, by the way he played in the preseason, but obviously that didn't matter much. Zach Horton was a guy who could potentially play for tight end. He could play fullback too, and they waived him. Mitchell Gude I thought would be a really good player to bring on the roster, and they didn't seem to think so. So today they signed. I'm sure I have to report they claimed Tyler Lacy, defensive tackle, and defensive end Tyrus Wheat on waivers. Now, I don't think this is the final roster. And obviously, if you've been around football for any period of time, you know that the preseason ends, the cut down date happens, and then there's a window of like 3 to 4 days before Labor Day where things just get wild. And it could be trades, it could be signings, it could be whatever the case may be. There's a lot that can happen in the next couple of days. That's why I'm holding the season preview out till Monday. We're Monday night. We will do the season preview. Um, Probably Tuesday night, to be honest. We will do a season preview, and because there's a lot to be determined, especially for the Detroit Lions, because they still have one open spot on the roster, and I didn't feel like it was a. I'm not going to speculate on anything. I think that's been well documented that people are speculating on whether the case may be Zadarius Smith, Carl Lawson, whatever the case may be. There's been a lot of people talking about those two, but those were the players that released. Now, there was a big trade, and I will react to it the way I should. Um, so Tim Patrick was traded to Jacksonville for a 6th-round pick. And there's a lot of people out there that are saying, "Oh my God, this this guy, Tim Patrick, was traded for a 6th-round pick." Now, when you put it in context of the way it actually is, put it in context the way it actually is. If you think about it, George Pickens was traded for a 5th-round pick, right? But here's the thing: if you go back and you look at Debo Samuel's trade, who Debo is a second wide receiver. He's a wide receiver too. Um, yes, he made $5.1 million. That was his cap number. But San Francisco only acquired a 5th-round pick for Debo Samuel. So the Detroit Lions traded Tim Patrick, and this is something that a lot of people are going to talk about because of the player that could potentially reap the benefits, and that's Isaac Tesla. And if you've been on this podcast, you've been hearing me talk about Isaac Tesla since they drafted him. I mean, obviously, Brad Holmes had a feeling about what this kid could do. Like, you don't spend 3 third-round picks to get a kid, not to put him on the roster, not to give him the world. You got to understand one thing. Like, I always tell people, in regards to the Tyreek Williams pick, in regards to Isaac Tesla, in regards to Giovanni Manu, they come from different systems. Okay. Like, we did the experiment with Hendon Hooker where we expected him to come in. There were some people who expected Hendon Hooker to be a guy who could potentially start over Jared Goff. That was never going to happen, in my opinion. But you got to understand the system that Hendon Hooker played in. The system that Hendon Hooker played in was a one-read system. Very easy for a quarterback. Now let's put this to Isaac Tesla. They're a run-first offense. They play a tough. They don't pass the ball a lot. And Taylor Green was a guy when his first option wasn't open, which that's Arkansas quarterback who is ironically, Taylor Green is a potential 1st-round draft pick this year. Beside the point, the Arkansas Razorbacks, they don't play this up and down kind of field. They play an old school run the ball, do this, do that, and then it is what it is. So when you look at Tesla, you look at the system he came from, you might have hit on a guy that was in a system that didn't benefit him, and you're gonna benefit the reap, and you're gonna reap the rewards from what Arkansas couldn't do. Now, I bring Tyreek Williams up in that same situation because he came from Ohio State. The nose tackle at Ohio State is not asked to get sacks. He strictly is not asked to get sacks. So when you talk about Tyreek Williams and you talk about his pass rushing, that's not his job. His job is not to rush the passer. His job is to maintain 2 gaps, and that's what he does. And then, with Giovanni Manu, we knew he'd be a little bit of a project. People were going to expect him to come in here and potentially, be the backup tackle. And after year one, that's just fugazi. It really is fugazi. But that's what happens. So Tim Patrick, he comes in here, does this thing, and obviously they find a different realm or reason for where he's going to go. Jacksonville, they make the trade, and that's what you get right there. So, part of the background noise. There's a lot going on at the house right now, so I'm gonna pause, and then we will go into the back half of the podcast. My apologies if you heard the background noise. We got a new dog, Charlotte, and she's a rebel rouser, man, and she's going to be doing a bunch of stuff. So um, that will be kind of in the background of the podcast for a little bit because she's still a puppy. So we'll get on to that. But let's talk about Zadarius Smith because I know a lot of people are talking about Zadarius Smith and they're talking about him potentially coming back to the Detroit Lions. Obviously, there's one open spot on the roster. And when we talk about the open spot on the roster, I mean, there's a lot of things that could come into play when you talk about that open spot on the roster. Now, we know that they claimed those two players, one from Jacksonville, one from Dallas. Now, those guys, I don't really think that they're a part of any plans. Um, Honestly, it's got to be a little bit maddening for Brad Holmes because he's honestly at the disadvantage of um, what Zadarius Smith does. You know, not everything is going to go to plan. Not everything that you do or you say or you have is going to go to plan. Like, you know, you could have a plan. You're going to sign Zadarius Smith at the training camp. But the issue you have is when you look around the league, there's teams that are just getting out of training camp as well. And they're gonna make the same assumptions that you're making. Okay, we need this edge rusher. We need this guy. We need this guy. Can we get a cheaper contract? Or we need this edge rusher bad. One of our edge rushers, he isn't hurt officially in the injury report yet, but we might need him going into the season. And that happens too. And the job of Zadarius Smith's agent is to get the best deal possible. And by holding out as long as Zadarius Smith has, it's a sign that his agent is working the phones. It's a sign that his agent is actually doing his job. Because what happens is, Jeremy Fowler reported this on Tuesday that many teams, high contenders, are contacting Darius Smith's representation. And whatever the case may be, whether you're a big time Zadarius Smith fan, but whether you're not a Zadarius Smith fan, doesn't really matter. What Zadarius Smith is going to do is whatever he sees fit. Whatever he sees fit. So when you hear about Zadarius Smith potentially picking between teams, listen, there's one way this can go down. And I don't know how many moves Brad Holmes has in his back pocket if that does go to, if it does go by the wayside, because I'm sure he has a backup plan in that case. But when you talk about Zadarius Smith, you talk about a guy who, a team could potentially offer him a multi-year deal. At his age, would be a gold mine. It would really be a gold mine, and that's probably what he's reaching out for, or he's reaching out for that voidable year, where he makes money and he's not with the team. There's a lot of things that could be said with the way Zadarius Smith has been. Everything hasn't been crystal clear. I don't think anybody around the league is like, oh, he's for sure going to Detroit, or he's for sure going to the Philadelphia Eagles, or he's for sure going here. He's going here. He's going here. There's so many moves that could be made by other teams. There's so many ways that he can go around it that it's interesting because what you're trying to do is Holmes is trying to put the best product on the field. And I don't think his best product on the field has hit its fruition yet. For whatever reason, there's obviously agents getting involved. This guy, and he's trying to put together the best roster. And in the meantime, he's trying to fill out his roster. Obviously, he signed that safety from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Daniel Thomas, who is a special teams ace, but that's not a guy that's really going to melt the pot. So, look, there's several ways this can go. There's several ways this can go, and we're going to see what happens up until Labor Day, up until Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that's when we're going to start to see some action. Because obviously, starting this Sunday, You're a week away from playing the Green Bay Packers on the first game of the season. So time is a ticking, and I'm sure Brett Holmes is like, "Oh my god, like I got myself in this situation." Because look, he could have had every intuition that Zadarius Smith was going to sign here. But if it comes down to the time where Zadarius Smith picks, I mean, Zadarius Smith can go, okay, I got a multi-year deal from the New York Giants, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to go with them because I'm not going to get no multi-year deal with the Detroit Lions. So that's kind of the way it works. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens moving forward. But that's the where it stands right now in terms of the Zadarius Smith stuff. Now, I know for a fact that the Detroit Lions checked in on some defensive ends, but ultimately, like I said, it takes two to tango. It takes agents to tango. It takes the team to tango. There was one that was a trade opportunity that that didn't work to fruition, and the team circled back, and the Lions couldn't do it. So that's a very uh, unfortunate situation, but that's the way things happen. And that's how fast things happen in the NFL. And sometimes you just get caught in this loop of, okay, we think we're gonna get this guy, we think we're gonna get this guy, and then it doesn't happen. So I'm not saying Zadarius Smith's not coming, but I would say every moment that we get towards kickoff, every moment that a team has a chance to miss an edge rusher, I think that's when you're going to start to see some things trickle on down. So we got until Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I think that's when you're going to start to see um, some movement across the league in terms of the players that are on the free agent list. I think they're going to make their way back to the NFL, and you'll have some roster movements from other teams as well. So that is what it is with Zadarius Smith. But I'll tell you, all right, on to the last portion of the podcast. Obviously, this is the news and notes part of the podcast. If you're not following the NFL Top 100, Jared Goff was ranked 15th. So that is really good for Jared Goff. But when you look at the ESPN Top 100, they had a different ranking for Jared Goff. They had 66. Now, I take more credence with the NFL one because that is voted on by the players, not the media. And I think the media got this one extremely wrong. They were 6 spots off from Jahmyr Gibbs. They had Jahmyr Gibbs ranked 27th, I think, on the NFL Top 100. ESPN had him at 33. Just interesting to compare and contrast between ESPN and the NFL players that voted on this Top 100. So there you go, right there. Fox had a preseason awards, and the winner of the Defensive Player of the Year, they projected Aiden Hutchinson to win Defensive Player of the Year. That would be fantastic if you're talking about a guy who could potentially lead the league in sacks. I think he's going to have a really, really good start to the year, and it's going to be interesting to watch. Let's get to some more. So, oh, I'll get to this. So Dan Campbell was talking about Jameson Williams. Now, Jameson Williams, we all know he's had so much things go on throughout his career. Throughout his career, he's always had things that have happened that have gone on. Dan Campbell offered this quote up on JMO. He said, he has grown so much. No player has developed more as a player and just as a teammate as JMO has. It's going on 4 years. I'm proud of that kid, man. I love what he's made of. He does not hide it. He is who he is, but man, he is all in with the team. Now, let's compare that to what people were saying about him. Brian Branch talked about get your popcorn ready. With Jameson Williams saying about his breakout potential. Then you hear former teammate Tim Patrick talk about notes that Williams is now dangerous at a short, eating intermediate routes, not just deep patterns. So what you're hearing from teammates, what you're hearing from coaches, is that JMO has gotten better in terms of his growth. Now we all understand that when you go through the methods and madness of the way you think and the way you do things, you mature as a person, you get better as a person, and that's where JMO is going right now. Now it's going to be very, very interesting to see what he does this season, what he's capable of doing this season. But I got to tell you, with the way that Jamison Williams has really homed in on his skills, the way that Williams credits James and Johnny Morton for letting him run a full route tree, helping him refine his cuts, angles, and timing. So you're getting all sides of the coin. You're getting JMO's vision, his accountability. You're getting Johnny Morton's vision on JMO, giving him more opportunities to run a full route tree, do all this. You got teammates like Tim Patrick and Brian Branch just telling you, look, this kid's going to be really, really good. Really, really good. And I credit JMO's growth to JMO by himself. Because, look, you could have so many influences in your life, and it doesn't matter. Because in the end of the day, you have to be your own critic. And if you don't change yourself, you're not going to change who you really want to be. So when people, talk about Jamison Williams and they talk about the culture around him, yes, the culture around him absolutely helped him. Guys like St. Brown and Jared Goff and Penei Sewell and Aiden Hutchinson, those guys are, you build off those guys. Like you look at them and you go, I want to be like them. I want to work as hard as they do. That's what I want to do. And when you see Jamison Williams do the things that he's doing in terms of, being more accountable, the way he takes credit, being coachable, that's a major thing. But look, Jamison Williams by himself had an obligation to himself. He had an obligation to make the most of his talent. He had an obligation to learn off everything that he did wrong. And he did. And when you think about all the great players in sports, they learn off the situations that don't fit them entirely. And that's what I like about Jamison Williams. I think he's doing a damn good job. And look, whatever his stats are this year. I mean, last year was pretty damn good when you think about Jamison Williams. He was really, really good. He had 1,000 yards, 58 receptions, 7 TDs. His drop rate was 2.2%. His yards per catch was 17.3. When you think about all that into fruition, Jamison's doing a damn good job. And I think that Jamison is going to really hit the mark. So we are going to see what he's all about. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what he looks like in the regular season. Now, as we wrap up the podcast, obviously this is a shorter podcast. There's a lot of podcasts that went an hour talking about the cuts and everything. I'm going to have my season preview out either Monday night or Tuesday night. I will let you know when it is. But I just wanted to get on here and, give you the deal, 25 minutes or less, just so you don't have to hear me mumbo and jumbo. We're going to get to the main deal. But as news breaks, obviously subscribe to YouTube if you're on the Spotify or on Apple and you're looking for daily content. JC Sports Detroit is where you can get the daily content. If there's a news that breaks, we'll have it. Obviously, Michigan State are starting, so we'll have that as well. Detroit Red Wings hockey, Detroit Pistons, Tigers, all of it will be on that channel. So just subscribe. You won't be disappointed. You're going to get the same exact coverage that you get on here. And if you're on the YouTube and you're listening to this on YouTube, please give me a subscribe. I really appreciate it. Obviously, I'm trying to grow the brand. I'm being more consistent this year. I think that's what really has hurt me in the past. But now I could be a little bit more consistent, especially which is hard with a baby and a puppy. But that is what it is. I'll see you guys in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football, especially on the season preview. Might have a guest or two on the season preview. So we will see you on Monday or Tuesday. I'll let you know. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football here on JC Sports.